Though they've been unable to find the time to reach some sort of bipartisan consensus to avoid a painful and unnecessary government shutdown, House Republicans did find the time to squeeze in a formal hearing into the absurd impeachment inquiry against President Biden. To make matters worse, they're openly doctoring so-called evidence that they're then presenting to the American people to justify this witch hunt. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, unlike the GOP debate, which occurred on Wednesday, the Thursday's first formal impeachment inquiry hearing into President Biden is probably going to be the topic of multiple videos because Republicans epically face-planted consistently in a variety of ways, and Democrats were on their A-game, the synergy, the teamwork. It was like every corporate buzzword just mashed together. They were firing on all cylinders with zingers and debunks and refutations. And there's just too much to cover in a single video, so it's probably going to be the topic of multiple videos. But first things first, I want to talk about something that is maybe the most egregious act committed by Republicans during this hearing, in which they are openly and flagrantly doctoring so-called evidence that they're presenting to the American people to try to justify this sham impeachment inquiry. So I want to play a few clips. But actually, before I do, I do want to play two clips that are relevant to how Republicans are conducting this hearing, or how they conducted this, and how they're probably going to conduct future hearings, just to show how shameless and dishonest they are. Let's start with this one here.
Your consent motion, Mr. Chairman, unanimous consent motion. I ask unanimous consent to introduce page 131 of the transcript of Devin Archer's testimony, where the question is asked, but he did not provide the Burisma executives with actual access to his father. The access to his father was an illusion of access.
Gentlemen's out of order. You'll have time in your 5 minutes. Chair, no.
So this is Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman trying to talk. He's trying to make a point of order to introduce evidence. Points of order are taken all the time by Republicans, Democrats. It's part of the process, and it's not supposed to cut into a speaker's speaking time. It's basically like, hey, before we move on to the next thing, I've got something I want to introduce into the record. And the other voice you're hearing is Republican MAGA cultist James Comer, who is the chairman of this hearing, interrupting and trying to flatly reject this particular point of order, even though these sorts of points of order are accepted all the time bipartisanly. So let's continue.
I recognize Mr. Conley from Virginia for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is it admitted?
I object.
I object to.
The clock's ticking, Mr. Conley.
What's the objection based
Mr.
on?
Goldman's taking your time, Mr. Conley. It's your turn to speak.
Yeah, you're taking time away from me unfairly. Distract.
So that is the next Democrat, the next speaker, who's a Democrat, Connolly. And again, during points of order, you're not supposed to run the clock, right? And not only did Republicans object and reject an attempt to even just interfere with Dan Goldman, a Democrat, introducing a common point of order, they didn't even stop the clock. They were allowing it to cut into the next speaker's time because the next speaker was a Democrat. And that might not seem like much to you, but that's remarkably, disturbingly petty. Now I'm going to play a different clip. This is right after Connolly, the Democrat, is done talking, and Dan Goldman speaks up again for a new point of order. But now it's a Republican's turn to speak because a Democrat just went. So watch how this unfolds now.
Chairman,
Donald's from
point of
Florida
order,
for
Mr.
5
Chairman.
minutes.
Point of order, down here, Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Mr. Donalds for 5 minutes.
order,
You'll
Mr.
have
Chairman.
5 minutes. You will
It's not
have
my
all
5
the
minutes. A
time.
point of
No,
order
you're
is
out of
not within
order.
5
You're
minutes.
out of order, Mr. Goldman.
I have a
when
point
your
of order.
when your time is,
I
you will
asked
be
to
recognized.
introduce
Chair
something by
recognizes
unanimous
Mr. Donalds
consent.
for 5 minutes.
Is it being introduced?
Chair recognizes Mr. Donalds for 5 minutes. Byron, it's your
Chairman,
time.
the rules require you
Thank
to
you, Mr.
recognize
Chairman.
me.
No.
Yes, for a point of order, they absolutely do.
Chair
And you have to
recognizes
rule
Mr.
on
Donalds.
the motion.
And is
You've
Mr.
already
Donald's
made
time
2
ticking
points
too?
of order.
No,
Chair
Mr. Donald's
recognizes
time
Mr.
is not going
Donalds.
to take. Actually, Mr. Chairman, I request this clock be set back to 5 minutes
Set
so we
the
can.
clock back to 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman.
So just to recap, and again, I know this might sound like no big deal, small potatoes, but this is actually huge. This is the Republican chairman of the Oversight Committee flagrantly violating rules, bipartisan rules which have been observed under all administrations by Democratic majorities, Democratic minorities, Republican majorities, Republican minorities, where anybody's allowed to introduce a point of order. And then if you want to shoot it down, so be it, but you have to let the person introduce it, and then there has to be an objection raised, and it shouldn't cut into anybody's time. It's never being done, except here. And note what happens. When Goldman tries to introduce a point of order again, not only does Comer interrupt him and say, no, we're not even going to let you try to introduce it, because it's a Republican's turn to speak, they not only don't allow it to cut into their time, they reset the clock. This may seem minor, but this is huge in terms of setting the stage of how Republicans are looking to concoct and hold these hearings, and complete asymmetry of the applications of rules. It's openly despicable. Now I want to get to the meat of the dishonesty, okay? That was a procedural dishonesty. Again, it's very ominous in terms of what it's going to mean for future hearings. But in some ways, what I'm about to show you is even worse. So this was the person who was about to speak, the Republican Congressman Byron Donalds, who is one of the worst. And that's saying quite a bit because they're all worse. It seems like they're competing for the title. He is about to introduce evidence which is actually doctored. It's manufactured, revamped evidence to try to make his case.
Next slide, please. For my colleagues on the other side, we're going to start talking evidence now. Oh, this is a fun one. Ladies and gentlemen, this one is from 2018. This is about 4 months before Joe Biden launched his campaign for president of the United States, December 2018. The highlight is, this is a text message between Jim Biden and Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden was in a bad way, by the way. He was really strung out. He lost a bunch of money. He needed help. Jim Biden says, "This can work. You need a safe harbor. I can work with your father alone." It'll probably take several months and everybody can read the text.
So, again, what's funny about that is Byron Donalds has the temerity to say that this is evidence. He smugly says, well, guys, we're about to talk evidence now. And I'm about to show you why this is doctored, why this is not evidence at all. It's, in fact, all it is evidence of the Republican Party's capacity for lies.
Colleague, New York Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Earlier today, one of our colleagues, a gentleman from Florida, presented up on this screen something that appeared to be a screenshot of a text message containing or insinuating an explosive allegation. That screenshot of what appeared to be a text message was a fabricated image. It was a fabricated image. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was the staff of the committee, but it was not the actual direct screenshot from that phone. And in fact, I would like to submit to the committee the actual full context from the Ziegler affidavit number 1, exhibit 402, of the full text of that exchange. Do I have permission from the chair? Importantly, what was brought out from that fabricated image excluded critical context that changed the underlying meaning and allegation.
So, it's absolutely despicable. There's a CNN fact. Actually, I'll show you this first. This is what Byron Donalds, the Republican, submitted, right? This right here. This can work. You need a safe harbor. And again, this is a doctored image because this is not how the text looked. They actually superimpose the words onto what looks like an iPhone blurb for style. But they cut out critical context. This is in reference to alimony and bills. Okay, I'm going to actually let a CNN fact checker break it down even further, but this is the full message. I can't pay alimony without dad or tuitions or food or gas. Really, it's all gone. I can make it up in 15, 20 days, I'm sure, but it's basically made clear he's not paying alimony because mom made it clear that he won't do it. Okay, this is in reference to Hunter Biden's divorce and the terms of the divorce and the aftermath. It has nothing to do with any sort of nefarious dealing between Hunter Biden, his uncle Jim Biden, or President Joe Biden. But again, I'll let a CNN fact checker break it down more succinctly.
This is about 4 months before Joe Biden launched his campaign for president of the United States.
Congressman Donalds did leave out critical context. So what were they talking about? Well, this week, yesterday, House Republicans released this text exchange between Hunter Biden and his uncle James Biden. And the actual context shows that Hunter Biden was saying he's run out of money and he can't pay his kids' school tuition, he can't pay for gas and food, can't pay alimony without help from his father. And then James Biden responds that it's kind of vague language, that basically they can work on this, that He can work with his father alone. He can be a safe harbor. So anyway, the context of this is Hunter Biden saying he doesn't have money for personal expenses. His uncle saying, yeah, I can help work with your dad on that. There was no indication anywhere in that exchange that was released by House Republicans that this was about business dealings, let alone the foreign business dealings that House Republicans have been focused on. But Congressman Donalds did not release the Hunter Biden text message that preceded his uncle's response. And so he didn't allow people to understand that this was about alimony, personal expenses, rather than foreign business dealings.
Well said. Folks, this is openly disgusting. This is the low to which the Republican Party has sunk. Doctoring images, doctoring text messages, specifically and nefariously to exclude critical context. This had absolutely nothing to do with even alleged foreign business dealings that don't even, there are no direct connections that are established, by the way, between those alleged foreign business dealings and President Biden. This is like 4 steps removed from it. And they did it on purpose while smugly saying, hey, we're actually going to present evidence now. And also while openly admitting that it was 4 months before Joe Biden even announced his candidacy for the presidency in the 2020 election. So let's think about this. Let's think about the timeline. That text exchange came from a time when Joe Biden was neither vice president under Barack Obama, nor president, nor running for president. He was indeed a full civilian. And the actual text exchange was between Hunter Biden and his uncle, also a private citizen who was not held public office, Jim Biden. And it was about not foreign business dealings or even domestic business dealings, but alimony payments. That's it. He was looking to his uncle for financial support because he couldn't pay his bills due to the hard times in which he found himself. And yet they doctored that image. They cut out critical context and then tried to spin it to the American people as an official text message, apropos of nothing, about President Biden's foreign business dealings. Absolutely despicable. This is the Republican Party has no shame. They have no limiting principle. And that was in the first hearing. But there's plenty of more moments from that particular hearing that I want to cover in subsequent videos. So just you wait. There are going to be more to come.